Yes, the answer to the question you're asking right now is yes. The movie is great. That's it. See ya. No, but seriously, I really liked Spider-Man Brand New Day. I've been following this movie ever since they revealed the first set photos, and I have to say, all the waiting was worth it. If you're thinking about going to see it, I definitely recommend it. If you're a Spider-Man fan, I'm sure you're going to love it. And even if you haven't seen all the previous movies, I think you can still have a great time with this one. I actually went to see it with my girlfriend, and she's only watched the first two movies from Tobey Maguire's trilogy because I forced her to. I gave her a quick explanation of what happened at the end of Spider Man No Way Home, but honestly, even without that, I think the movie does a really good job of catching you up on everything you need to know, and she actually told me she really liked the movie. Now, that might just be her being nice to me, but I genuinely think this is a movie you can enjoy even if you haven't seen every previous Spider-Man film or you're not completely caught up with the MCU.
Oh my god, that's disgusting.
This video I really want to share my thoughts on the movie and talk about some of the things I liked and some of the things I didn't, because even though there are definitely a few things that I had problems with, I still think this is one of the best Spider-Man movies out there. There will be some minor spoilers in this video, so if you're planning on watching the movie, I recommend clicking off and coming back after you've seen it. I'd love to hear your thoughts once you've watched it, especially because I've seen some people say they didn't enjoy the movie, and we'll talk about that later in the video. With that being said, let's start with the things I really liked. The movie does take almost the entire first half to really pick up the pace, but you know what? I actually think that's exactly what Marvel movies have been missing lately. They've been moving so fast from one action scene to the next that they forget to slow down and let the characters breathe. And since I mentioned it, the action scenes were amazing. You can clearly tell they took inspiration from the combat in the Spider-Man games, and I think that worked really well. The choreography was fantastic, every fight felt fast, fluid, and really fun to watch. The swinging felt real, and it was really interesting to see Peter learning to use his now enhanced powers. And burn me to the ground, I'm saying this, listen closely, Andrew Garfield fans, it was as good as the swinging from the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I've said it. Visually, I don't think any other Spider-Man movie even comes close to this one. It looks absolutely gorgeous, and the way it was shot is just incredible. Huge props to the director because there are so many scenes that genuinely look stunning. One of my favorite parts of the movie was Peter convincing himself that he has to be alone because everyone he loves ends up getting hurt. I think that storyline was handled really well, and it shows just how much Tom Holland's Spider-Man has grown as a character since we first met him in the MCU. And honestly, I think this is Tom Holland's best performance as Spider-Man. You can really see how much he's improved as an actor over the years, just like Peter Parker has grown throughout these movies. I've also seen a lot of people compare this movie to Spider-Man 2 because they both focus on Peter struggling to balance his normal life with being Spider-Man. They definitely take different approaches to that idea, but I honestly think both movies do it really well. One last thing before we move on to the things I didn't like. I didn't expect to enjoy Punisher's role in this movie as much as I did. It's definitely a different take on the character. He's a bit more light-hearted than we're used to seeing, and he ends up having this buddy cop dynamic with Spider-Man that I think works surprisingly well. The two have great chemistry, and a lot of their scenes together were genuinely fun to watch. What also surprised me was how big of a role Punisher actually has in this movie. I wasn't expecting him to be involved as much as he was, but I think they handled him really well. City Sink's character was also handled really well, and there was one scene in particular that was just amazing. If you've seen the movie, you probably know which one I'm talking about. Now, let's move on to some things I didn't like. They're pretty minor, but I still wanted to mention them. This is something that a lot of Marvel movies tend to do, and it's having a joke immediately after a really emotional or serious scene. The scene I'm talking about is when MJ finds the letter Peter wrote to her. I actually really liked how they handled it because, unlike what a lot of people expected, they didn't take the easy way out. A lot of fans thought she would read the letter, suddenly remember everything, and they get back together, but that's not what happens. Instead, she simply tells Peter that the girl he wrote that letter to isn't her anymore. I thought that was a really powerful moment. They didn't just undo what happened in No Way Home, but then almost immediately after that, they throw in a joke. And I don't know, it just didn't really sit right with me. I felt like they should have let the moment breathe a little before moving on. Let me know if you felt the same way in the comments. I know this is a common thing in Marvel movies, and I think it's something that they should stop doing. One other thing I would have loved to see, but unfortunately didn't, was Man Spider. Maybe not as a full transformation, but even just in a nightmare or a hallucination. I would have loved to see Peter's new arachnic DNA manifest itself even more than it already did. I think it could have made a really creepy scene and shown just how dangerous these new powers actually are. It's not a huge complaint by any means, but I think it was a missed opportunity. Tom Holland says Mind Spider was considered for Spider-Man Brand New Day. We explored the nightmare sequences of him waking up as the Man Spider, and very quickly we were like, we do want children to enjoy this movie as well. Tom. Respectfully, fuck them kids. Another minor thing I would have liked to see is a bit more battle damage on the suit. Don't get me wrong, I think the suit looks amazing. I'm not saying it needed a redesign or anything like that, but come on, battle damage Spider-Man suits are just so cool. I would have loved to see it get really torn during the final fight. There wasn't that much battle damage in this movie, which is totally fine, but I just think it would have made some of those action scenes look even better. As you might have noticed, most of my complaints are pretty minor. There really isn't that much about this movie that I disliked. At the end of the day, this is a grounded Spider-Man movie, and honestly, that's exactly what I was hoping for. There isn't really a central villain in the traditional sense. There is a bit of a twist where the person we thought was the villain was actually trying to do something good, and I thought that was an interesting direction to take. I also like that the movie doesn't fall into the same trap that a lot of Marvel projects do, where everything feels like it's just setting up the next movie. It tells its own story first, and I really appreciated that. The post-credit scene does hint at Spider-Man being involved in Secret Wars rather than Doomsday, which is interesting because in the comics, that's where Spider-Man gets the black suit. Now, that opens up a whole other discussion about where they could take the character next. I have a lot of ideas about it, so I might make another video going more in depth about what I think could happen. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie, and I think that it's one of the best Spider-Man movies out there. I would give it a solid 8.5 out of 10, maybe even a 9 out of 10. I absolutely loved it, and it generally felt like a love letter to Spider-Man fans. But I'm curious to hear what you think. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And while you're at it, if you enjoyed the video, please leave it a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, especially since I'm still working towards 1K subscribers. That's pretty much everything I had for you today. Thank you so much if you watched until the end, and I'll see you in the next one.